Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevayam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevayam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevayam. Om Aganda Timarandasya Ganajana Shivakaya Chakshur Umulitam Yena Tajma Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Hare Krishna. The following video series is a summary of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam was translated into English by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Also included are His in-depth commentaries known as purports. These purports unpack the often complex and symbolic language of the text, making it understandable to a wider audience. The Srimad Bhagavatam, also known as the Bhagavata Purana, is considered the most important of sacred scriptures. Composed around 5,000 years ago, it is considered the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic literature and the original commentary on the Vedanta-sutra. The author of Srimad Bhagavatam is Çréla Vyäsadeva. He is also the compiler of the Vedas, classified as a Purana, a vast genre of ancient stories and knowledge encompassing history, philosophy, and spiritual teachings. Srimad Bhagavatam includes stories of avatars, creation narratives, lives of saints and sages, philosophy discourses, and practical guidance for spiritual life. Divided into 12 cantos with over 18,000 verses covering 10 subject matters. 1. The elemental creation. 2. The secondary creation. 3. The planetary systems. 4. Protection by the Lord. 5. The creative impetus. 6. Manvatars. 7. The science of God. 8. The dissolution. 9. Liberation. And 10. The supreme shelter. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya-lila, chapter 25, text 143 and 144, Lord Chaitanya, speaking to Prakrisananda Saraswati, tells him, translation, the meaning of the Vedanta-sutra is present in Srimad Bhagavatam. The full purport of the Mahabharata is also there. The commentary of the Brahma-gayatri is also there and fully expanded with all Vedic knowledge. Srimad-Bhagavatam is the Supreme Purana. It was compiled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His incarnation as Vyasadeva. There are 12 cantos, 335 chapters, and 18,000 verses. Canto 4, chapters 14 through 23. The Advent of Prthu Maharaj. Chapter 14, the story of King Vena. Maitreya describes King Vena, who was arrogant and devoid of piety. He rejected the Vedic principles and forbade all religious rituals and sacrifices. He declared himself the sole enjoyer of all offerings and forbade others from performing any religious duties. The sages, deeply disturbed by Vena's actions, approached him and urged him to mend his ways. However, Vena, instead of heeding their advice, mocked them and insulted their authority. In response to Vena's insolence, the sages, with their combined spiritual power, killed Vena with a sound weapon. When the government is very weak, rogues and thieves flourish. Similarly, when the government is very strong, all the thieves and rogues disappear or hide themselves. Of course, Vena was not a very good king and was known to be cruel and severe. In his absence, thieves and rogues flourished. A verse from chapter 14 is text 34. Itam vaivasita hantum rasyo ruda manayava nijagnur hum kritar venam hatam achuta nidaya. Translation. The great sages, thus manifesting their covert anger, immediately decide to kill the king. King Vena was already as good as dead due to his blasphemy against the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, without using any weapons, the sage killed King Vena simply by high-sounding words. Chapter 15, King Prthu's appearance and coronation. In the previous chapter, the method adopted by great sages and scholars who were learned in Vedic knowledge was perfect. They removed all the reactions of King Vena's sinful activities by seeing that King Vena first gave birth to Bahuka. After King Vena's body was thus purified, a male and female appeared from the churning of Vena's arms, Archie and King Prthu. In this chapter, Maitreya describes the coronation of King Prthu and the blessing he received from various demigods. After emerging from the body of his father, Prthu was crowned the rightful king of the earth. Numerous demigods, including Indra, the king of heaven, and other celestial beings showered Prthu with blessings. They presented him with royal gifts and bestowed upon him the necessary powers and authority to rule justly and benevolently. A verse from chapter 15 is text 4. Ayam tu prasamo rajam puman prastayita yasya Prithurnama Maharajo Bhavishyati Prthu Srava. Translation. Of the two, the male will be able to expand his reputation throughout the world. His name will be Prthu. Indeed, he will be the first among kings. Chapter 16. Praise of King Prthu by the professional reciters. This chapter is dedicated to praising the glorious activities and divine nature of King Prthu. Professional reciters extol his virtues, acknowledging his position as an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. They described him as a just and benevolent ruler, a protector of the innocent, and a source of inspiration for all beings. The reciters emphasized Prthu's unwavering devotion to the Supreme Lord and his ability to perform extraordinary feats. They highlight his compassion for all living entities, both human and divine. Through their eloquent praise, the reciters established Prthu as a role model for all kings and rulers. They underscore the importance of righteous governance and the responsibility of leaders to protect their subjects and uphold the principles of Dharma. A verse from chapter 16 is text 4. Esa Dharma Pritam Shreso Lokam Dharme Nuvartayan Goptacha Dharma Setunam Sastatat Paripanfinam. Translation. This king, Maharaj Prthu, is the best amongst those who are following religious principles. As such, he will engage everyone in the pursuit of religious principles and give those principles all protection. He will also be a great chastiser of the irreligious and atheistic. Chapter 17. Maharaj Prthu becomes angry at the earth. Maitreya describes how the earth personified became barren and unproductive, leading to widespread famine. The earth, unable to bear the burden of sustaining life, approached King Prthu, pleading for relief. She explained that due to the sinful activities of mankind, she had become exhausted and incapable of producing sustenance. Enraged by the flight of his subjects, King Prthu in his divine form chastised the earth for her disobedience. He threatened to punish her severely if she did not fulfill her duty. To awaken the earth's productive potential, King Prthu used his divine plow to till the land. With a single stroke, he compelled the earth to yield abundant crops, ensuring the substance of all beings. A verse from chapter 17 is text 12. Maitreya uvacha Prithum prajanam karunam nisamya paridevitam drigham dadya kuru shresha nimitam so nivapadyata. Translation. After hearing this lamentation and seeing the pitiable condition of the citizens, King Prthu contemplated this matter for a long time to see if he could find out the underlying causes. Chapter 18. Prthu Maharaj milks the earth planet. Due to sinful activities of the people, the earth became barren and unproductive. To alleviate the suffering of his subjects, King Prthu, in his divine form, decided to extract milk from the earth. To ensure the well-being of his subjects, Prthu requested that the earth yield milk, which could be used to nourish the people. The earth, in her divine form, agreed to this request. He then transformed Swayambhuva Manu into a calf and milked all the herbs and grains from the earth in the form of a cow, keeping them in his cupped hands. The sages, demigods, and even the demons transformed a representative of theirs into a calf and received various ingredients from the earth. The earth, under the influence of Prthu's divine potency, yields an abundance of milk, which is then distributed to all beings. A verse from chapter 18 is text 28. Tato mahipati prita sarva kama tukam Prthu duhitri vechakaremam premna duti vatsalahi. Thereafter King Prthu was satisfied with the planet Earth, for she sufficiently supplied all food to various living entities. Thus he developed an affection for the planet just as if she were his own daughter. Chapter 19. King Prthu's 100 horse sacrifices. Maharaja Prthu decided to perform 100 horse sacrifices in the land where the river Saraswati flows east. Rulers in ancient times understood that it required great piety to maintain power. Material influence, wealth, and personal strength were not enough. Indra became jealous of Prthu's immense power and pious activities. He sought to disrupt the sacrifices by stealing the last horse at the sacrifice. Prthu's son, realizing Indra's intentions, pursued him relentlessly. Indra used many tricks to prevent himself from being caught. He even disguised himself as a sannyasi. Prthu took up a bow and arrow and was about to kill Indra when the priest performing the sacrifice stopped him because it would be inappropriate for Prthu to kill Indra during the sacrifice. Lord Brahma came and reasoned with Prthu to stop at 99 sacrifices and spare Indra's life. A verse from chapter 19 is text 3. Yatya yagna prati saksad Bhagavan Harir Isvara Anvabhut Yatsa Sarvatma Sarvar Loka Guru Prabhu. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, is present in everyone's heart as a supersoul, and he is the proprietor of all planets and the enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices. He was personally present at the sacrifice made by King Prthu. Chapter 20. Lord Vishnu's appearance in the sacrificial arena of Maharaja Prthu. The great sage Maitreya describes a divine conversation between the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, and King Prthu Maharaj. Lord Vishnu appears at the scene and brings Indra so that he can be forgiven by Prthu Maharaj. The Lord praises Prthu for his unwavering devotion and his selfless service to humanity. He acknowledges Prthu's divine nature and his ability to perform extraordinary feats. The Lord engages Prthu in a profound philosophical discussion, explaining the nature of the soul, the material world, and the ultimate goal of life. He emphasizes the importance of realizing one's true identity as a spiritual being and detaching oneself from material attachments. The Lord explains the virtues of devotional service and the power of chanting his names. He encourages Prthu to continue his spiritual practices and inspire others to do the same. A verse from chapter 20 is text 9. Yasva dharme namam nityam nirasi shradhaya vita prajate sanakastasya manorajan prasidati. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, continued, My dear King Prthu, when one situated in his occupational duty engages in my loving service without motive or material gain, he gradually becomes very satisfied within. Chapter 21. Instructions by Prthu Maharaj. Maitreya describes Prthu Maharaj, who, decorated with all beauty and an ocean of humility, gives instructions to the citizens during a great sacrifice. The previous chapter stated that Prthu returned to his city. Maitreya describes that city in the first 3 verses. Vidura inquires from Maitreya that he wishes to hear more about Prthu Maharaj. Maitreya explains that Prthu performs another sacrifice and glorifies all the attendees. Prthu then glorifies the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After hearing King Prthu speak so nicely, all the demigods and dozens of Pritaloka, the Brahmins, and the saintly persons present at the meeting congratulate him by expressing their goodwill. A verse from chapter 21 is text 32. Vinirdutstat senamano malapunam asanga vigana visesa viryavan yad angri mule krita ketanam puner nasam stritam klesh vamam prapadyate. Translation. When a devotee takes shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is completely cleansed of all misgivings or mental speculation, and he manifests renunciation. This is possible only when one is strengthened by practicing bhakti yoga. Once having taken shelter at the root of the lotus feet of the Lord, a devotee never comes back to this material existence, which is full of the threefold miseries. Chapter 22. Prthu Maharaj's meeting with the 4 Kumaras. The great sage Maitreya said, while the citizens were thus praying to the most powerful King Prthu, the 4 Kumaras, who were as bright as the sun, arrived on the spot. Prthu warmly welcomed the Kumaras with respect and had them properly seated. Sanat Kumara, after explaining Gyan, teaches bhakti to Prthu Maharaj. They discuss the nature of the soul, the material world, and the ultimate goal of life. The Kumaras emphasize the importance of devotion to the Supreme Lord as the highest form of spiritual practice. They explain that by surrendering to the Lord, one can attain liberation from the material world and attain eternal happiness. A verse from chapter 22 is text 39. Yat pada pankaja palas vilas bhyaktya karmashayam gat hitam ugratayanti sanat tadvanna rikta matayo yatayo piruddha shroto gunastam aranam bhaja vasudevam. Translation. The devotees, who are always engaged in service of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord, can very easily overcome hard knotted desires for fruitive activities. Because this is very difficult, the non-devotees, the jnanis and yogis, although trying to stop the waves of sense gratification, cannot do so. Therefore, you are advised to engage in the devotional service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. Chapter 23. Maitreya describes that as King Prthu approached the end of his life, he renounced all worldly possessions and attachments. He distributed his wealth among his subjects and prepared to leave the material world. Prthu goes to the forest, practices austerities, worships the Lord. Prthu engaged in meditation and chanting the holy names of the Lord. He controlled his senses and mind, detaching himself from the allurements of material life. At the end of his life, Prthu, with his mind completely focused on the Supreme Lord and given up the planet of the humans, goes along with his wife to Vaikuntha. A verse from chapter 23 is text 10. Bhagavad Dharmina Sadho Shraddhaya Yattata Sara Bhaktir Bhagavati Brahman Ananyas Visaya Bhavat. Translation. Prthu Maharaj thus engaged completely in devotional service, executed the rules and regulations strictly according to principles, 24 hours daily. Thus his love and devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna developed and became unflinchingly fixed.